I'm going to meet one of the greatest tuners in the world, and a close friend of Glenn, Verne Edquist. Vern's story is fascinating and inspiring. Everything started in the cold Canadian land of Saskatchewan. Verne was an extraordinary and courageous child. He was born with a serious form of blindness that caused him several problems. His mother decided to send him to a school for blind children, and this marked the beginning of a very difficult and challenging time in his life. Verne had an extraordinary hearing and possessed a perfect pitch. He later found his vocation was to be a tuner. He tuned pianos for the likes of Vladimir Horowitz, Arturo Benedetti Michelangeli, and Victor Borge. But he's most famous for having been Glenn Gould's piano tuner for 20 years, working side by side with Gould and cultivating a long-lasting friendship. Verne, now 90 years old and retired, is a kind and humble man, happily married to Lillian since 1957. A father of 4, a grandfather, and now newly a great-grandfather. We are here with Vern Edquist, tuner and friend of Glenn Gould. Good morning, Vern.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here with us today.
I'm very privileged. I'm very privileged indeed. And the lady in the office said, "Oh, well, you're going to be looking after Glenn Gould and Mona Bates." So one day, the call came in for me to go up to Glenn Gould to tune his chickering. He had an old chickering that he brought from the cottage. Well, I got there, and of course the piano had dried out, and the tuning pins wouldn't hold the pitch. So I had quite a discussion, and I said no to Glenn Gould. Somebody said, you said no to Glenn Gould? I said, yes. So I said, if my job depends on this situation, let's know it right now. But I had them bring in the piano, and we got it rectified, and Glenn was happy. So that's how I met Glenn Gould in his apartment. And I guess the rest is history. We did quite a few sessions together in CBC, and there was one particular time when we were doing the Emperor Concerto at CBC, and Glenn didn't want any air conditioning, and it was hot, and the lights and the TV in those days had to have bright lights because of resolution. And I worked 9 hours straight without a break, but that was part of life. And when I was finished, it all became worthwhile when some elderly gentleman came out of the orchestra and shook my hand and said it was a good job. So anyhow, that's just another little chapter.
But Vern, how many hours you work for tuning the Glenn Gould's piano? How many hours for?
I always allowed 2 to 2.5 hours, because you want to make it right. You might go over 3 times. Yeah. It has to be absolutely perfect. The harmonic pattern has to work. You know, and if you don't have the harmonic resonance, then it won't sound right. That's what makes the piano sound. And The piano is a very unique instrument. I hope they discontinue. I hope they keep on building them, because you don't hear that in the electronic sound. You hear it in the natural sound. Simone?
Yes. Yes.
They've made the sharks a lot with the sharper edge on them.
Well, they have to live up to their name, right?
Maybe. That's different. Little anecdote. A friend of mine who was totally blind I went to school with phoned me up one morning, and he used to call me Sweet. And he said, "Sweet, I heard your tuning on the radio." He could recognize my tuning.
Impressive. And are you fond in a particular work of Glenn? There's something in his repertoire where you're particularly fond, or recording that you like mostly?
Well, my biggest challenge
Yeah.
was when we were doing the Meistersinger. We started recording it in September, and Glenn always wanted the piano a couple of beats sharper than normal, which I had it done. And he said, "Oh, we'll put it aside, we'll do it later." Come March the next year, I matched the March tuning to the September tuning, and you can't hear the difference. I guess the most difficult one, Glenn was going to record a harpsichord. And on a harpsichord, the keys don't have anything to stop them. They ride up, and then they hang on and they sing. And Glenn, he was beside himself. He didn't know what to do. So I went out and I looked at it, and I thought, gee, what's going on? 2 o'clock in the morning, and I looked, and the key level wasn't right. So I pushed all the keys down to St. Louis, and then it worked. And the man said I should have got a credit on that recording, because they saved the recording. But that was one of the challenges that I had with the harpsichord. But anyhow, that was Glenn's experience with the harpsichord. But another little funny story. When I first met Glenn, he was talking with a producer at CBC, and I'm listening to this, and this fellow said he had a pet monkey, and this pet monkey ran up and down the walls and the curtains and everything else. And guess what Glenn said? How does he do it? Does he have suction cups on his feet? And I had to look away. I didn't want to, but he was so brilliant and yet naive about things. You had to, he was always the boss. He was always the boss. For example, we're in an all-night session. I'm bored and I'm trying to run a tape machine. I'm doing push-ups, trying to get some exercise. Glenn walks in the room. He said, "Don't do that." So I didn't do it. But no, I was very privileged, and when I went to see Glenn at the funeral parlor, his father said that Glenn gave me such a good compliment. But Glenn, being Scandinavian, really never complimented. Scandinavians don't, yeah. And so I'm very fortunate to have known him. And I've known other musicians. I've tuned for Arthur Rubinstein and Victor Borge.
I love Victor Borge.
And well, when he was serious, he did a serious program.
Yeah.
And he gave my wife his autograph in Danish, because my wife is Danish.
Oh, yeah.
And, but I've met a lot of good people.
So another question was like, I would like to ask you if Glenn loved to joke to his friends, and even if he made to you a joke, you remember something?
Yeah, I remember, and a lot of people don't understand it. and the farmer would say to the daughters, throw the cow over the fence some hay. You know, or Glenn would talk about silly things. You know, and it's make-up stories, I'm sure they're made up. And he was trying to tell me that some woman knocked on his door when he was at a cottage, and she had a dachshund. I said, I didn't say anything, but I think I've done that here. but he always wanted to, when he went at night, when he was a night hawk, and when he drove up 400, he wanted to go to get his coffee when he knew the police were going to be there, so he'd be safe. And all little things like that. And he drove a black Lincoln,
Yeah.
and they called it Longfellow. And there was a craze about Dracula, you know, and I think he put on an act.
And I love it.
You know, so.
And you love to go in a car with him? You like when he drove?
And one of the last times he drove into the subway, and he could barely get in the car. You know, clothes, chairs, everything.
Everything.
And I said to Glenn, I'm going to stop doing concert tuning when I'm 50, because I feel you start to lose your edge, and I think I'll let it go with that. He said, well, I don't know about you, but I'm going to be finished at 50. And he died at 50, 51. Whether he had a premonition about it, but he seemed to dwell on that. I don't know.
Go.
Brava Linda.
You did that wonderful.
Thank
You know, with the phrasing.
Oh my God.
I hear that new phrasing.
Oh, thank you. No, I'm just,
You've worked hard.